going to prepare for the 2021 population exercise, as I indicated. We've done the first phase and we're moving into the second phase, which is the actual enumeration. As the minister indicated, 27th night is not about counting. 27th night is to raise awareness, consciousness about the questions that we're going to ask from the 28th. So let us not have the impression that 27th night is about knocking doors of people in an attempt to count them. All that we are doing is to raise awareness on that night. And we are hopeful that once we are all targeted with the various instruments that we've developed, we are pretty certain that we're going to have a successful census. Honorable, I guess that I'm running out of time.
No, please.
Okay. Thank you. You're getting closer, suggested so. I'll quickly run through the instrument as I indicated. The enumeration itself is starting on 28th, and we're going to have 10 core modules for the census undertaking. The first module, to give you a sense of the questions that we're going to ask, the first module is on immigration, thinking about persons who have traveled outside the country in the last 12 months. So that is the first module that we're going to work with. This is very important for us because some of the questions that do come up is, what about members of our usual households who have traveled outside the country, whether we're not going to count them or not? We're definitely going to collect information on them, but our headline census figure will be based on all persons who are going to spend the 27th night in the country. The second module is the socio-demographic module, and as I indicated, here we are asking questions related to literacy, education, and the two sentimental issues that lately have been in the news. Thankfully, we've overcome them, and that has to do with religious affiliation and ethnicity. We also ask questions related to marital status under the socio-demographic characteristics. And the third module is on literacy and education, and I believe we all know the importance of this for our development discourse. Then the next set of modules are related to issues around difficulties in performing activities. For the first time in our 2021 population housing census, we're going to ask the severity of the difficulties in performing these activities, at least from 5 different areas. So once the enumerators approach the respondents, they're going to ask whether you have no difficulty in, for instance, seeing, you have some difficulty in seeing, and whether you have a lot of difficulty in seeing even when you are using some aid. Then the issue about economic activity, as was indicated, employment and unemployment figures remain critical to our discussion. So the 2021 population housing census has a full module on economic activity, and here the reference will be 7 days preceding the census 9. And persons will be asked whether they are engaged in some activity or they've made some effort, that is whether they are available and seeking to be engaged in some economic activity. Another module in there which ties very well with the current development agenda of the government is the information, communication, and technology module. And here our focus is to ask questions around the use of ICT tools, and we do an extension to ask questions related to the use of mobile money, which gradually is taking over traditional banking system. And the last 4 set of modules span from issues related to fertility and child survival, issues on mortality, and issues of housing and sanitation. Of particular importance to us in there are the issues on housing and sanitation, specifically to help us address 2 things under housing, that is the housing stock, housing deficit, and also the quality of housing. And this is where we make good use of our information from the listing exercise in terms of the use of the structures. Indeed, with the information that we've collected so far for the various structures that we have in the country, 55% of the information that we've collected so far suggests that they are used for residential related activities. So moving into the census, we're going to make good use of the housing module and again, the sanitation module. I'll conclude by sharing with you some issues that we want you to help us demystify as members of the press as we go into the actual census undertaking. We've seen on social media some issues related to why people will be counted on the 9th. As I indicated, the census undertaking targets 6 different groups: the households, institutions that we categorize in 2 dimensions, those in a predetermined institution, that is the university's halls of residence, the entry point and the exit point are known, and institutions that purely temporal. The entry and the exit are unknown. That is where we do our PHC 1C. And the fourth model is when we are targeting people who will be transiting our floating population, and we have a separate instrument for them. And then we have our fifth group, that is persons who are going to spend the census night in guest houses and hotels. And lastly, we're going to have persons of our diplomatic corps who would have persons of Ghanaian nationality spending the census night there. So these are the 6 categories of persons that we're going